In the eternal darkness of the solar system, an entity emerges with a beauty that leaves anyone stunned. Look at it. Bands of cream and amber clouds swirl like an oil painting by some god. A world that looks so peaceful, almost poetic. We call it Jupiter, the king of the planets. But in this universe, beauty is often death's most perfect mask. As you draw a little closer, space begins to twitch. Your intuition tells you something is wrong, and then radiation sirens scream. The ship's electronics begin to dance frantically. Magnetic field gauges surge past every scale ever established by mankind. At this moment, you realize a grim truth. You aren't approaching a planet. You are hurtling straight into a machine of destruction. What makes Jupiter so terrifying? Why does this giant possess a rage that has lasted for centuries? And why is it that the more we understand it, the more we realize the solar system has never been as gentle as we once imagined? We are often taught in textbooks that Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, but the word large is actually an understatement for this entity. In the universe, scale is sometimes not just size, but a kind of oppressive power. Imagine this. You could fit more than 1,300 Earths inside that gas shell and still have room left. But that is still not the most terrifying thing. When you gather all the planets, moons, asteroids and comets in this solar system together, then double their mass, they are still not as heavy as Jupiter alone. But the truth is even darker than that. Scientists call Jupiter a failed star. It possesses a chemical composition nearly identical to the Sunday. If, during its formation, it had gathered more matter, a thermonuclear reaction could have ignited right within the heart of this giant. Imagine a different scenario. If Jupiter had successfully become a star, our solar system would be a binary star system. In that case, orbital stability would vanish. There would be no peaceful seasons, no habitable zones. And Earth, along with the entire history of mankind, might have been wiped out before it even began. From the moment of its birth, Jupiter has stood at the edge of extremes. It is not a normal world that we can understand through the logic of rocky planets like Mars or Earth. It is an anomaly. It stands there, guarding the boundary between life and nothingness, between a cold gas planet and a burning star. And it is this colossal presence that has created a deadly zone of influence, where anything that dares to trespass must pay the price of destruction. But its colossal size still isn't the most terrifying thing. As you draw closer, the first thing that will kill you won't be that mind-crushing gravity, but the very environment it creates. Look closely at those stunning bands of colour. Those soft curves you see from millions of miles away are actually churning cataracts of ammonia and sulfur. Beneath the tranquil appearance of a marble painting is an atmospheric system of planetary scale chaos. This is not a place for admiration. This is a place where every human definition of weather becomes meaningless. At the very heart of that chaos lies the icon of Jupiter, the Great Red Spot. A superstorm wide enough to swallow the entire Earth without even chewing. But the most terrifying thing isn't its size, but its persistence. This storm has raged for at least 300 years, and possibly for millennia. It has existed longer than the history of many human civilizations combined. While empires on Earth rise and fall, this monster remains there, swirling in an ancient violence that has never shown signs of stopping. On Earth, a Category 5 hurricane is enough to level the most fortified cities, but on Jupiter, that is merely a light breeze. With wind speeds exceeding 370 miles per hour, the jet streams here rush by like colossal walls of gas, ready to tear apart anything in their path. Imagine a world where air is not for breathing, but is a weapon. A world where clouds do not bring rain, but bring pure mechanical destruction. You might think, just land beneath the cloud layer and we will find peace. But that is exactly when Jupiter's trap snaps shut. On Jupiter, you don't even have a place to avoid the storm. There is no ground to set foot on, no caves to hide in, no stopping point. Only a journey of permanent freefall into the deep darkness. Because in this place, the concept of a surface simply does not exist. Forget the footage of landing on the Moon or Mars. On Jupiter, the concept of landing is a luxury that does not exist. As you fall through the cloud layers, you won't find a single patch of sand or a sliver of rock to cling to. You are simply falling. The deeper you go, the atmospheric pressure increases so rapidly that it is no longer air. It becomes a thick, viscous liquid, gripping your ship like a giant hand slowly closing. At a depth of about 620 miles, physics begins to go mad. Here, the pressure is so intense that it blurs the boundary between gas and liquid. You are floating in a region of space that science calls supercritical fluid. There is no sky and there is no ground, only a mass of searing, dense, and pitch black matter, and that is only the beginning of the physical nightmare named Jupiter. Going deeper still, you will reach the dark heart of the giant, the ocean of liquid metallic hydrogen. Stop for a moment to feel the absurdity here. Hydrogen, the lightest element in the universe, the same gas you use to fill balloons, is now, under pressure millions of times greater than Earth's, being squeezed to the point that electrons are stripped from their atoms. It transforms into a type of liquid metal, electrically conductive and hotter than the surface of the Sunday. This is a bizarre form of matter, an alien logic that we can almost never perfectly replicate in a lab. You are standing, or rather, being crushed inside a massive metallic ocean tens of thousands of miles deep. Jupiter doesn't just refuse to let you touch it, it actively transforms the nature of matter to ensure that no living creature, no human device, can survive to tell the tale of what lies beneath. But this ocean of metallic hydrogen doesn't just sit still. It is the electric heart of Jupiter. The movement of this gargantuan mass of liquid metal creates something even more terrifying than bone-crushing pressure. A colossal magnetic field. A death machine that doesn't protect life, but only exists to destroy it. Imagine, if human eyes could see this magnetic field in the night sky, it would appear twice the size of the full moon. Even though Jupiter is hundreds of millions of miles away, it is not just a zone of influence, it is an entity that dominates a vast region of the surrounding space. On Earth, the magnetic field is a protective shield, deflecting cosmic rays to protect life. But on Jupiter, the same physical mechanism creates the exact opposite, a deadly particle accelerator. Jupiter's magnetic field traps charged particles, accelerating them to nearly the speed of light. They hurtle frantically, forming radiation belts so intense that an unprotected human would perish within seconds. This is not a protective shield, this is a massive electric cage ready to incinerate anything that intrudes. Jupiter actively resists being explored. Look at the Juno spacecraft, our bravest exploration mission. NASA engineers had to construct a titanium vault inches thick just to protect its electronic brain. Every time Juno flies close to Jupiter, despite being thoroughly protected, each orbit remains a gamble with death. Radiation slowly devastates the sensors, corroding the circuits. If you could hear this magnetic field, it would not be the silence of space. It is a hiss, the scream of imprisoned charged particles. It is the voice of a world that does not welcome any visitors. But this brutal power of Jupiter does not stop it protecting itself. It stretches its tentacles further, imprisoning neighbouring worlds in a vortex of tragedy and fragile hope. Behind that deadly magnetic field, there are moons paying a terrible price to exist alongside their king. Look at Io. It is the most geologically active body in the solar system, but not because it is young. Io is being tortured. Jupiter's terrifying tidal forces constantly pull and twist the internal structure of this moon, much like you would knead a piece of clay in your palm. The internal friction is so great that Io's rocky core is completely molten. The volcanoes do not erupt in cycles. They scream continuously to release the pressure from Jupiter's grip. Io is a world being burned from the inside out by the very gravitational pull of the one it orbits. Not far away is Europa, considered humanity's greatest hope for finding life beyond Earth. Beneath a thick layer of ice lies a massive ocean of liquid water containing all the necessary elements for life. But don't let that tranquility deceive you. Europa sits right in the heart of the deadly radiation belt we mentioned in the previous chapter. Its surface is bombarded by terrifying high-energy particles, strong enough to destroy any DNA strand in an instant. Life, if it exists, is forced to hide in the eternal darkness of the subsurface ocean, completely isolated from the universe above. A painful paradox. The most promising place for life in the solar system is covered by the thickest protective layer of death. Even Ganymede, the largest satellite in the solar system, larger than even Mercury, cannot escape its fate. It is the only moon to possess its own magnetic field, a rare effort to resist Jupiter's encroachment. But that shield is still too small before the eternal electromagnetic storm of the giant king. Ganymede may have its own magnetic field, but it must still operate according to the rhythm of Jupiter. Around here, freedom is only an illusion. Every world is merely a puppet on the gravitational strings of the gas giant. However, Jupiter's power is not limited to this kingdom of moons. Throughout billions of years, it has interfered with the fate of every other planet. Jupiter is not just a dangerous neighbour. It is the one who designed the violent order of the entire solar system. In the distant past, Jupiter was not at all as peaceful as it is now. There is a bold hypothesis named Grand Tack. It describes a violent migration. Jupiter advanced deep into the inner young solar system, churning up all matter and preventing the formation of other planets. It was like a monster walking across a construction site, trampling foundations and toppling walls. It was this very journey that dictated which planets were permitted to grow and which had to vanish forever into the void. Look at the asteroid belt. Don't just view it as a random region of rocky debris. In reality, it is a graveyard of worlds that were never allowed to be born. Jupiter's colossal gravity constantly stirs this region of space, preventing fragments of rubble from coalescing into a complete planet. This belt is not the remnant of something that died, but the remains of planetary embryos that Jupiter sterilized from the very beginning. A silent testament to the giant's gravitational tyranny. People often call Jupiter the shield that protects Earth by attracting dangerous comets. The Shoemaker Levy 9 event in 1994 is a testament to this. We have seen Jupiter capture, tear apart, and devour a cosmic invader. But be careful with that gratitude. Jupiter is an unstable bodyguard. Sometimes it stops a threat, but sometimes its very gravity bends the orbits of asteroids, hurling them toward the inner solar system where Earth lies. If you want to understand why the solar system has the shape it does today, you cannot overlook Jupiter. It is the central character that rewrote our map through pure violence. But after centuries of observing this giant from afar, the image of a gentle king is gradually collapsing. The deeper we study, the more we find ourselves smaller and more fragile before what Jupiter is truly hiding. That is when we realize there are boundaries that mankind should never cross. For thousands of years, Jupiter appeared in the night sky of our ancestors as a steady, authoritative, and immutable point of light. It was named after the king of the gods, associated with order and celestial protection. For a long time, humanity looked up at it with distant reverence, considering it a gentle giant guarding the borders of the solar system. But the history of astronomy is actually a series of slaps to our complacency. Every time humans take a step closer, that gentle shell cracks a little more. In 1979, the Voyager spacecraft showed us the first storms, proving that this was not a silent mass of gas. But it wasn't until the Juno mission that the final illusions officially collapsed. We discovered that the core of Jupiter is not a solid mass of rock, as theory once predicted. It is a diluted region, chaotic and undefined. It is like opening a door and realizing there is no room inside at all, only a black hole of transforming matter. What we once thought were the rules of planetary formation have been torn apart by Jupiter right before the eyes of NASA's leading scientists. And then, the latest data from the James Webb Space Telescope in early 2026 dealt a final blow. Anomalous cold spots recently discovered within Jupiter's auroras do not follow any thermodynamic models known to us. Temperatures drop suddenly by hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit, right in the middle of a colossal energy zone. We begin to realize a chilling truth. The more data we have, the less we find ourselves understanding. Jupiter is not just a gas planet. It is an extreme physics laboratory where our physical constants seem to be bent. It is not an object to be explored. It is an anomaly that needs to be decoded. The image of a protective king, a shield guarding Earth, has completely collapsed, replaced by an indifferent, violent, and mysterious entity. Jupiter emerges as a hard boundary of human ambition. A place we can see, can measure, but perhaps we'll never be able to conquer. Knowledge has not brought reassurance. It has only brought a philosophical fear that in this universe there are powers so great that we not only cannot reach them, but we don't even have enough language to describe them. Throughout the past century, humanity has nurtured an illusion of dominance. We have set foot on the moon, sent exploratory robots across the red plateaus of Mars, and even touched distant asteroids. We began to believe the universe was a map waiting to be charted, and that there was no place human will could not reach. But then, we met Jupiter. This giant stands there as a cold reminder that the universe was not built to serve our ambitions. There are boundaries that are not just difficult, they are impossible. On Jupiter, there is no stepping foot moment. No footprint can be left here because there is no ground. Every effort to conquer becomes a journey of permanent freefall into a hell of pressure. As you go deeper inside, physics itself becomes your enemy. The pressure here doesn't just crush metal, it grinds even the most durable of humanity's technological definitions into nothing. You cannot build a base within a storm that has lasted 300 years. You cannot inhabit a liquid hydrogen ocean that can fry any electronic device in seconds. Jupiter is not a new frontier, it is a doorless fortress. Jupiter actively rejects us. The brutal radiation surrounding it is like an invisible protective layer, ready to incinerate any long-term exploration ambitions. While humans dream of cities on Mars, even keeping a spacecraft in orbit around Jupiter for a few years is a feat of endurance. Our technology can help us reach Jupiter, but it cannot make Jupiter more hospitable. It is a hard boundary of ambition, an entity we can only observe from a distance in awe, rather than hope for migration or mining. This is the greatest lesson Jupiter teaches us. Human existence is a miracle, but it is not the center of the universe. Jupiter represents the cold indifference of deep space. It has existed for billions of years without caring whether we can comprehend it or not. It reminds us that we are only accidental guests in a system operated by extreme and brutal physical forces. Conquering Jupiter, that is a naive idea. But the more we are rejected, the more humans long to return. The more we are threatened, the more we want to seek answers. If Jupiter is death, then why do we believe it holds the key to life? We return to Jupiter not because it welcomes us, but because it holds the key to the entire galaxy. Most of the planets we've discovered around distant stars are gas giants just like this. Jupiter is our closest laboratory, the most perfect prototype for us to understand how the universe operates. To understand Jupiter is to understand billions of other worlds out there. We cannot hope to explore distant galaxies if we cannot decode the monster right here in our own backyard. The second reason, and perhaps the most haunting one, the moons. We return because of a strange paradox. While Jupiter is the ultimate symbol of death, its moons, especially Europa, hide the greatest hope for life beyond Earth. Think about this. Jupiter's own brutal tidal forces, the very thing twisting and torturing Europa, is the sole energy source keeping its subsurface ocean from freezing. Life there, if it exists, is feeding off the very energy of the destroyer. We return to the most dangerous place to find the answer to the most important question: are we alone? We return because it is human nature to refuse boundaries. Every time Jupiter says no, we find a way to say yes. Building machines that can withstand Jupiter's radiation isn't just about science, it's about testing the limits of human intelligence itself. Facing Jupiter is how we look in the mirror to see how far we have truly come. Every fragile signal beamed back from the giant's poles is a victory of will over the sheer brutality of physics. We return because Jupiter stands as a grand challenge, one that we simply cannot afford to ignore. Finally, we return for the sacrifice. Every spacecraft we send to Jupiter knows its fate beforehand. They will be crushed, incinerated, and completely absorbed into the heart of the giant. But before vanishing, they manage to transmit the final pieces of the puzzle to complete the story of our existence. We return because, within Jupiter's cold rejection, it still reveals the deepest truths about the origins of the solar system. And humanity, in all its smallness, is willing to trade everything just to touch that truth. Now, having traversed every layer of this gaseous hell, from its inconceivable scale to its lethal radiation belts, what remains? Perhaps the most terrifying thing about Jupiter isn't its power. It is what it is trying to tell us about the very future of humanity. Let us return to the point of light we see from the ground. It looks so peaceful, solid, almost like a gentle neighbour guarding the sleep of humanity. But after this whole journey, we now clearly understand the truth behind that brilliant light. Beneath that amber shell is not a home, but an entity that lies beyond all human empathy. What is Jupiter? It is a gas giant that almost became a star to incinerate this entire system. It is a world without a surface, where matter behaves according to alien physical laws. It is an invisible death machine, ready to crush all our ambitions with its magnetic field alone. And more than that, it is the violent architect who shaped the form of the solar system, the one who decided which planets were allowed to exist and which planets had to vanish into cosmic dust from billions of years ago. Jupiter is terrifying not just because it can destroy everything that comes near, it is terrifying because it forces us to realize a cold truth. This universe is not at all gentle, and it was not built for human survival. Most of the universe exists, operates, and explodes without caring whether we can understand it or not. Jupiter is a reminder of humanity's place. We are small, fragile, and living in a system controlled by indifferent, colossal, and unchallengeable forces. It was there long before we appeared, and it will still stand there, swirling in its own violence, long after the last breath of mankind vanishes into the void. The universe is watching us. Or are we just looking into a giant trap that we call home?